But until then, we have our great minds right now. So I want you all to take advantage. Two individuals who will walk around with the microphone. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and they will come to you and we will field your question. But before we begin, our third panelist, Dr. John A. Wright, Sr., who's someone I came into contact with a few years ago of St. Louis. Went to Harris Stowe degree, but then he went on to get his master's as well as his doctorate in education from St. Louis University. But for those that may not have heard of him or may not know of him, he was in school district and then became the superintendent of the Kinloch School District. So education is his background. So I'm going to ask him to take a few minutes to share a few thoughts about what he's heard today, maybe provide some other perspective before we get into the questions. But for those that don't know, again, one more thing about him, he is the author of numerous books. So please feel free to go to Amazon or you can Google, but please support the work. They're great items to give to children and to friends and anybody in terms of their knowledge. Dr. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I got interested in history, goes back to my teacher. So, we all have to have a beginning. So mine goes back to my high school teacher. Then, for years, I found myself in Kinloch. I retired from Kinloch, on to Webster Groves, and I still was. Someone said, "Yeah, a friend who worked at the Post. She wrote 100 articles, only out of 100. Bad news sells. And you begin to think about why are there so many negative about the black community? Because we're taught, you're taught to hate yourself. Kids are taught to hate themselves. Well, tell me what done. Mess up everything. That's what you would hear. And stuff. And so I began to feel that that's a job that needs to be done. To tell our positive things, to build our community. If we don't, and you begin to find out that in this country, you tear down people in order to take advantage of those resources. Native Americans, savages. In their own land, they became savages. The Irish, bad-mouthing because you wanted jobs. Steal. Every advantage of their resources. And we have to remember we're on the end where you can steal land or anything you want if you disparage them. And so when we begin to hear these negative comments in there, you couldn't let them run down houses. And then we get accused for tearing them down. No, slum lords. And so we have to begin to think about what happens. My friend, you don't know because they say, if you want something, put it in the book. So we have to look at ourselves. If we don't know history, why is it? Is it because we don't read it? Because the word is, you want to hide something from, put it in the book. They're not going to look at it. You will, but you got other folks won't. They won't look at it. They won't. You can give them a book, and they won't open it. I tease friends all the time about that. You got the book? What? Read it? No. But you. So that's my desire to. I've done book tours, even taking folks abroad. taking them to Africa because we have a negative impression of Africa. Local go over there with them. They eat people. All this negative stuff, which hate us. So we have to be careful in how we do it. If you hate, you love others. And yourself. Okay.
That's a good word there, Brother Wright. Very good word. So I'm not going to do any more talk. I'm going to ask Janelle here, who will be one of our grips, I guess you call it in the industry. We'll walk around. If you have a question, she'll give you the microphone. If she starts doing this, that means give the microphone back to her because you're talking too long. And we also have Master Perkins over here as well. So this is your time. Anything that you have heard, this is open for discussion. Our history is long in terms of its tenure, but you've heard a lot. There may be some, you may have a question. I did promise him the first question, so there he is. You give a name, Joe. This is your first question. We're waiting on you. Janelle, is there a microphone on?
My question is going to be for Robin Prouty, and I just wanted to ask, what do you feel the Black Alumni Association, because I'm a alumni of SLU, undergrad and grad, the Black student, and even elected officials, maybe the Black Caucus and that, what things do you think they could do to be helpful in moving this cause along? Because thank you, educated clip, but I didn't get this. So the education you gave was phenomenal. My grandma, I'll say on record, she owned houses for white folks. She's from the Boot Hill of Missouri. Folks' houses. She had business, and many of them, as a little kid, were racist. Well, I'm gonna do it the way you want me to, Mama. So I'm gonna put it up, but my voice is loud. Sometimes people tell me, I'm too loud, so I'm sorry. So I can tell you that as I watched it really hit me hard to just people on the I attended for their freedom. I'm 100% with you. Do something to rectify. How you?
Thank you for that. Reason why to educate and tell our story, and for the Black Student Alliance and Black alumni or the student alumni, we would say if you could, I don't know if you actors that work, contact them. Actually, in 2020, get on the website. I got all the alumni, no matter what color, are there. Email them. Contact SLU office. Send emails saying what are you doing. The descendants, their 10-point plan. We know how. Just call and do all that type of advocacy for us. We often check our Instagram and Facebook pages and LinkedIn. We always put our latest upcoming events, what we have going on. Like I am doing St. Louis County Library Slavery Roundtable on February 20th. You can look that up on the St. Louis County February 7th. I have a with a couple of professors, talking about what we're doing, not just St. Louis, St. Louis University, but the whole community. You can call them. A friend of mine, he's a professor. He did a book called Beyond the Ivory Tower, In the Shadow of the Ivory Tower, and he talks about how universities get into the black community and plunder our cities. They take from our community. They don't pay taxes. They get their trash taken by the city. They utilize the residents' taxes, but they don't give back. They take from us. And when I heard and read that book, it really solidified we're absolutely doing the right thing. That it's just not about enslavement. It's about redlining. SLU took some of Mill Creek property. My friend Vivian Green, who wrote a book, time. So again, I say to you, definitely contact the university, be on them. That is how, when they notice that the community is coming together, of me being here, we need all hands on deck. And any little win that we can get is a win for us all.
So you say make sure we
It's called In the Shadow of the Ivory Tower, How You Under Our Cities.
That is a study in itself, because St. Louis University, but
No,
that other university, Washington University, they don't pay local taxes.
Most universities are 503s and unless university, but they don't pay taxes. The community, a community in Harvard, and where Harvard is located, them for a reason, and they won because they were making all this money. They were doing research and everything, but they wasn't giving back to the community. And that book talks about that. And those are a lot of things that goes on. That's what SLU's doing here. So definitely contact them. Okay. Thank you.
A microphone. Well, we have a stream,
Would
so we
that-
want to make sure we
Would that so also? I'm passing the hills when we have UMSL, and I'm so disgusted with them because they really don't do anything to build up or tell anything that's going on in our community, which smack of it. Not only that, but they weren't even sending their teachers who needed to have experience. That's other thing. Okay, black churches, alliance to tell your story so they can get their congregations in. And I'll say this last, elder, I'll be 77 in March. Well, I'm not going to say in my tell our story called post-traumatic slave syndrome, and the trauma that we experience as being enslaved people was in our DNA. So they didn't tell their stories because they were so traumatized. So back into the black church, where the cultural, what do I say, encyclopedias for our kids. Churches drop that, and then we say, well, I didn't get it in school. Why would you expect the lion to tell the beauty of you as an elephant? All our young men, until queen, hair is beautiful, your the size of it is beautiful, you were built with a purpose, until we get into tell me more what we can do to help our young people know that they are beautiful and they are kings and queens and the workers and the geniuses of this world.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Brother Boy, you want to any part of that?
Yeah, I think I haven't said anything yet. Can you hear me now? I don't think this is on. I don't think this is on. Thank you. I'll just speak. How's that? Can you hear me? Microphone. Thank you, dear. I try to give grace because I understand many people are focused on through the day. You know, at the end of the day, people need food, water, and shelter, and if they don't have that, all things, even history, are kind of are secondary concerns. I think we now with technology, education, corrective, and I know there are that are trying to eliminate DEI or African American history, diversity initiatives. I think we still have to teach it. We might not need to put the banner like, here, this is critical race theory. No, we're just going to teach history. And sometimes you have to be, and I'm saying this on film, but you have to be subversive, right? We have to teach our children about who they are. I remember I at a school and to come in because as a white teacher, she was trying to teach, and the African a real, because they have an assumption that at the beginning of time, have been at the ladder. I had to tell them is that there's to this. If we're looking at the last 400 or 500 years, yeah, we've got some evidence to say that things were pretty bad in certain places of the world. But if we widen that spectrum to look at the entire breadth of, then we're going to see at different times, Europeans were going to be second-class citizens in their own land when the Moors, controlled the Iberian Peninsula. We have to correct those things that our kids have. Conversation, whether you're at the table, whether you're just brief conversation. Our own particular history, as complicated as that is with us. We don't have to wait somebody to come to school. Have a simple conversation. Ask questions. Continually ask questions. Research, right? It starts with us, and it starts with our own narrative, connected to the larger narrative, but we can make a difference, and we can make a change.
We have to realize, we have to realize whites are carrying. That's one thing we have to realize. I was on a, any of you ever heard of gator babies? Gator babies.
Database.
Gator babies, where African kids were taken from their mothers who worked in the field and tied up to feed alligators. Souvenirs made for those. Gave a friend of mine a souvenir, copy picture of souvenirs of the gators, the babies in the gator's mouth. And people know that didn't happen. It did happen. History lets us know it's happened. In Louisiana, the heads of Africans were cut off and put on poles up and down the river to cut slavery votes. And then we had people retreat. And so you tell kids, because schools don't. My love for history came, one teacher talked about Pedro Alonso Nino. Who? Pedro Alonso, a captain on one of Columbus's ships. Schools don't talk about black folks being the pilot on Columbus's ship. To teach that to our kids over and won't do. They are to school to tell the teachers because they got it at home. And they brought different items to the class. Teachers don't have it. Armed with it, they can help. It's not easy because people are careful to hate. We have to keep that in mind.
We want to a little bit, again, this is your opportunity. Do you think think about the question there, Joe, think about the question. I believe, I just say something about St. Louis University real quick. Mill Creek keeps coming up. From my understanding from Vivian's book, and I've talked to her, because she was actually going to be here, but she had to be in Kansas City. The East St. Louis University campus, east of Grand, a lot of that is on the neighborhood property. Okay.
Took the highway in. They built the highway out.
Yeah. Well, that part too,
Right,
but
yeah, that
St. Louis University both eradicated that neighborhood.
Question is for John Wright Sr. I would like to ask you from a historical perspective, what do you think has changed from the past to the future, causes so many with our...
I think conditions, and we got a divided community. I was talking with a group, Kinlock. When you had communities, you had diverse communities, all levels, all better. When we split communities up, we take away role models, and we crime. I'm told that the drug dealers up and down the highway don't even come in. Many times they stuff off and then keep moving. And so a way to make money is to steal and cheat. And so we have to give power for them to grow. I used to work as a youth leader. Stories from the young. The role models just weren't like they used to be. They moved away, and the only model they had was negative models. And so we have to build those back in. We're doing other organizations promote positive role models in the community. And we have to do that. Give kids some other models to emulate that are successful. I think that without those models, some communities you don't have role models for kids to rely on.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Janelle has a question?
Yes, I have a whole group question. So, why were people in?
The question was, why were people enslaved?
Money. Money.
Would you like me?
Why are people enslaved? It's for wealth. You have people making it off of. We have enslavement to a certain amount. Debt.
Yeah.
And you have to pay it off. That's can't move anywhere because you owe too much money. Every day somebody's on the phone. You want to borrow this? Make it easy. 9% interest rate. 40 years from now, you're out of debt if you don't pay it. It's getting harder because interest rates keep rising, but you got more loans, which means you'll never take the become slaves, a modern slave, rather than working in the. We're working every damn job for folks.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to be careful not to get. That's a form of slavery.
Yeah.
It's just a different form.
Mm-hmm. Boy, you want to?
Try to can for my daughter. Slavery is about opportunity. People took advantage of others, and we have made the explanation that people were inferior, that inferior, and they talk about the curse of Ham. They make things up. And slavery, something that holds people to being exploited. When I taught at the University of Michigan, I think it was 2016, I was having a conversation with some of my students after class. Two of them were from the Mississippi Delta. As you probably know, it's one of the poorest regions in the entire country. But two of my students in 2016, during the summer, to make extra money, they picked cotton. And it was hard for me to stomach that they still were somehow attached to a system that had exploited their grandparents, their great-grandparents, still tethered to the spirit of labor. Slavery exists today. Human trafficking. As long as we not stay vigilant, as long as we avert our eyes to the evil that we see before us, this will continue. We have to continually fight to save our children, our elders, ourselves. Slavery can come in different forms, and we've got to fight against it.
Janelle, did that make sense? What your dad shared? Yeah? All right.
Any more questions?
Then we have a couple in the back there.
Good afternoon to
Good afternoon.
Chester Arthur Dean's his father's United and Miller Boyd and also friends and church members. Dr. Wright, I've just recently become informed the program that Prouty has in reference to the enslaved at St. Louis University. And this, like many of the other states, like that. My concern is, we're so educated and we know what the issues are, but we don't implement programs, for instance, in the system, and the corporate. So what are we going to do to enlighten our children and our youth on a continual basis, besides just the month of February? And like it's already been said, and I appreciate what has been said, I give Black history every day to my sons, to my daughters, my grandchildren, every day. Even when I was at the St. Louis Public Schools, we just didn't do this in February. So I'm just asking, what initiatives do we have for our children within these school programs? How are we going to do it?
Well, answer. So my friend, who is a Tulsa race massacre in Christy in Tulsa every Saturday, her and a group of educators come together on their own turf, and they, it started off with children, but now the parents stay and they also get educated. It happens it just won an award from National Geographic. They did not wait on everybody else. That's what we have to do, solution oriented. We can talk about this history, we can talk about what's, but at the end of the day, sitting in the churches, coming together and hunker down, close ranks, and do what we need to do. That's what our ancestors are still here for us to stop complaining and get education. We have no excuse. There is the internet. You can go to YouTube University and find anything you want on YouTube. How to birth a baby, how to do your eyelashes. And stop people and the public schools. Hey, we have to show up to the school meetings, the council meetings, and do our part. We want to put people in place, find people, run for election council and things like that. Then pass the legislation. My friend Robin Roos, out of Evanston, Illinois, she's the first woman as represents legislation in the city of Evanston, Illinois. How did she do that? She was an alderwoman. She ran. People supported her. We can no longer make excuses. We need to get back to what we know what we need to do. Thank you.
Very good.
We need to have leaders. Many of our leaders haven't seen the superintendent of schools in 3 districts. Leadership is important. Leadership can drive the forces that change in the schools. If you don't have the leadership at the, it's hard for those at the bottom to do their job. It makes it difficult for them. You can move things around where you drive those that don't change it. As I tell folks, it's not a big deal. Simple math. If you don't have 4 votes, you out. So you can make changes on the board to make sure people begin to do the bid and the needs of the community. And they bring people in who will make the changes you're looking for. And so it's simple math, not a hard thing to figure out. And many people, the activists, know the math, and they work to bring about those changes with that math.
Are you going to say something? Okay.
Just real briefly, you know, do it. And I know life can be very busy with raising children, taking care of parents. Each one of us, we cannot ourselves save the world dramatically, but we can all play our part. If we only do one, right, and get one small thing, then we move the needle forward. I think a Saturday program would be amazing. We need to talk about that.
Oh, yeah, I can get Chris bottle over.
Yeah.
It's spreading all over.
I think there are opportunities. Small, expand, but we don't ask permission. We do it.
We have to remember, one light can light up many lights. And so it all starts with one light, like Rosa Parks was saying. You got to have one light. Once that one light happens, you pass. At our church, we start out with one candle for some services. That one candle light up, everyone has a light. Next thing, the whole church is lit up. So one person, that one person, you can make the big difference by being the one person strike a light.
Yeah. Absolutely. I do want to take a moment before we go back to the question, and we do want to try to move around questions. I think Brother Hodge had a question, and Brother Pollard, but before we do, I know Alderwoman, I think she just put a piece of candy in her mouth. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard is here. Do you want to share a few words? No? Okay. Well, we're glad you make it, and thank you for your presence as always. You can give her a round of applause. She's doing hard work. She's doing some hard work. I think we got Brother Hodge in the gray suit back there. And Brother Hodge, why don't you introduce who you are so everybody knows?
Thank you so much. I do exactly that. I was going to be key. My name is Harlan Hodge. I serve as the president of a local school board. I wanted to conceal that because I've got a question, but it's also a loaded question because I'm suffering with a little frustration. Dr. King in his later years became very unpopular because he said that the civil rights movement he had experienced was phase 1, and it didn't cost us anything financially. It literally didn't cost us anything to sign in civil rights legislation as a nation. That phase 2 is going to for us that we need reparations. We literally need to put money back into the pockets of the people who we've stolen from. And it seems that that message has been lost and we haven't revisited it. So let me finish that of my frustration and then I'll ask. How much wealth African Americans just in our city have lost by the appraisal system? Build their wealth, the money that they invest in their homes. Who own a home in children of city, the disparity between the values of our black-owned houses and our white counterparts, because one elderly white man came through your house and said, your house ain't worth what you think it is. Focus the system of the people, community. Ms. Simmons and I live in the same neighborhood, and it's awfully crazy that our houses aren't as much as the white folks' house in our neighborhood. It's absolutely ridiculous. They're stealing our money. Get that, research it. The question is, how do we prioritize this work for young people? I've found our young people to not care history. They don't care about the struggle of their parents or their grandparents. They've become so disconnected from the work that we talk about. And it's hard. It doesn't even matter what socioeconomic background they're from. You know, they didn't struggle like we struggle. It seems like middle-class black kids are more affected from the struggles of black people than anybody. It's good kids like, you know, y'all, they're wonderful. But my so how do we in mass begin to get our kids to care?
Well, you see his daughter. You see his. She is. You start at a young age, so by the time they get older, they don't be a mess. But I'm just saying, sometimes they still become a mess. But
they still become a mess.
They come back around, though. They eventually come. We all come back around with that root if we get that foundation. Hey, what alternative?
Yeah. Let me, let's go to Brother Perry. I think he wants to have a response.
Just in response to about our children and how they think and what they see and connection to, be clear, their views, what's critically important. There was a pearl in the community that started with their parents or grandparents called black picket fences. So before we say the children embrace a culture that is unlike the culture that we want to set, we got to go back a few years, that within our migration from the South, some of us had a academic and began the caste system in our own community. So our kids now are becoming the fruit of what we failed to do 50 years ago. And so I want to just caution us as we gather here, this is not a new cycle. Our communities have achieved great things. I'm listening to people say, what programs? The programs have all existed. The problem is those of us who have achieved in great ways, we've taken our children to other programs. And so over time, we have conditioned our people to think that what we offer is not even good. So that internalized complex is still at work, because there was a season in our or created a black picket, created a amongst our own people. When we talk about how do we, without being honest about that too. Now, I am not one that I'm talking about. We kind of know what's us, right? We know where we kind of do some decluttering. We cannot forget the system that not only the wider system created, but the ones that we embrace and internalize. Which is why we could have, leaders from all minority and still can't get. This cycle is a problem that we cannot talk only about what's next. We got to also be given a story that you want from St. Louis University to acknowledge. There's some roles that we also play in creating another system within this broader system and structure that we are all fighting to overcome. So I just think when we talk about what do we do next, don't forget that. That piece is critical to our community and advancement. I'm not saying everything needs to go there, but we do need to be honest where we have created some systems where we also look down on some folk and say, I can't live with them. I think Dr. Rice said that we were taught to hate ours. But that inferiority complex, and it's havoc all over the city, county of St. Louis, Missouri.
We have to teach our kids possibilities. Once we do that, it becomes a goal of theirs to achieve. But you have to visualize yourself in a different position. And those who can visualize a different world for themselves, possibility. You got to believe.
Quickly, Alan, one of the things that I do with my students who don't like history is I tell them that somehow, some way you're connected to either American history or global history. And we do this exercise where we'll go to FamilySearch.com and your grandparents. Go actually on these databases, look through census records. For one student I had in one of my studies classes last year, in 20 minutes, I took his family history back 200 years, documentation. And that 20-minute exercise with him, right, he told his family, 5 people in North Carolina, 20. 6 months later, I met his parents at a function for black parents at where I teach at Whitfield. And his parents said that moment did everything for him. So individuals, a larger American narrative, I think themselves connect the fact they actually are.
We want to make sure. Hold on.
Don't mind.
Hold on. Give me one.
Okay. Then.
Is it to Joe? Is it to his question?
Well, you respond to his question.
Okay.
If
Okay.
you didn't mind.
No, go ahead. That's I want to stay on point.
So I wanted to respond to the question. The reason our property values in our communities are not appraised fairly is because there are less than 5% the appraisers across this nation of color. And so Marcel, United States HUD secretary, before she was appointed by Biden, she was basically pushing to get more appraisers. She'll be here another month or so with the Delta Sigma for luncheon. The regional administrator of HUD, believe it or not, was a Vashon High School graduate, Ulysses Deke Claiborne. And, our administration will leave Monday, but I can tell you, we're too tough on ourselves. A lot of these solutions, like this sister said, Robin, are really simple. One, we need funding, okay? And so, for example, with the youth, there's an administration for children and families. They do a lot of funding for programs with children and families. One you might know of is Head Start, which Mike McDonald received a lot of funding from Head Start. The secretary of HHS is Javier Herrera. I'm your regional director. And I promise you, I've been fighting for funding leaders to in this and talk petty politics so tough. I'll be real with you. So just the other day, I met with Congressman Wesley Bell, and he committed to sit down with me so I could take him through all these federal departments and where the funding is and how. I held grant jobs all through this region. In Kansas City, I'd have 200 plus people show up to find out about grants. You know what I mean, a lot of funding. And when I came here, I get a decent crowd. It wasn't that I didn't send it out. It wasn't that I didn't try to get it out. But we let too much petty politics in this region. And we to lose. If you look at the so low now, marriage equates to the family income. If we don't increase the number of black marriages in our community, we will essentially die. So, you know, we could talk about a lot of things, but I'm telling you right now, it's no money in my. These people can't get. If there's no funding for these programs and we paying taxes into the system, when you and fact that they come and do stuff and they get in the United States, okay? They received $100 million last year. They opened up a 600,000 square foot cancer center that I tell you, they don't for us. So we have to fight. We have to fight for that funding. We pay taxes. We have to hold our leaders accountable, and we have to make sure that if leadership, you know why you're doing, you know how the system works, and you got to produce. And if you don't, you need to be voted out.
There you go. All right. Very deep, very deep. And let me just go back. I think we got a couple questions. I know Brother Pollard, I know up first. If you want to close out, it is my back. Absolutely right. So you mentioned this. The appraisal, we all real estate agents or realtors. It is the appraisal. And every state has an appraisal board. You don't know who's on the appraisal board, but those are the ones who dictate your family wealth and your legacy. And we need to call them to bear. So the new governor that's coming in, we need to find out those appointments, the board, because in the neighborhood, when one house and right across the street another house has a different value, or on Del Mar, same square footage, same school district, but the West End neighborhood has a lower value compared to on the Bolivar. And then the question is, I'm gonna close out, I'm gonna be quiet, because it is my, we need to know what the methodology is on how they dictate the appraisal process. So going forward, in 2025, we need to find out and do our research who those appointments are, and we need to start asking those individuals to come to St. Louis and tell us, what is your methodology? We need to call these black realtors in and say, we understand you're trying to make a commission, we understand you're trying to do your real estate project, your business, but we need to understand how you provide values to our family wealth.
Can I add one more comment to on appraisals? I live in University City 43. Elmore, you have, when you get close to Big Bend, 3 large homes. When the community began to change, some of those homes went for $11,000 and $25,000 because whites were leaving. Whites started coming back to $1 million. It was based on the color of the neighborhood. That I saw here, it increased from 25,000 to 400,000 when I because the color of the neighborhood. Mindful of what's driving those values. Those people who were stuck fast and not selling cashed in versus those who ran. So we just have to be mindful what drives that.
Yeah, we're almost, be very quick, we'll do a real Robin. I think I said, Mia, did you have so we got Pollard. We're gonna have the gentleman. We'll be very quick. We're gonna be very quick. Because we wanna have some words to close out.
I'm gonna try to be quick.
No, you're gonna have to be, Brother Pollard.
Okay, Brother Hurd.
Our Virginia
A lot of dialogue, a lot of great conversation about things in terms of taxes, in terms of, just in terms of being able to teach the kids, as school history, which and I'm sure the way on the King look, you gotta have short-term goals, you gotta have long-term goals. And a lot of the things you're talking about is short-term, in terms of getting funding, like the gentleman right here talked about in terms of, going to the people, the powers to be, and being able to navigate and be able to get funding that's needed to be able to implement and do the things and the programs that needs to be done. But there's also an aspect in terms of parent partnership in schools. As your kid matriculating through school, it's very that parent or parent partnership, which will, because look at it, parents need to be educated right along with being educated. And where do students spend most of their time at school, at least 6-7 hours a day in school. What those funds are about, a plan for private school, but for also public sector programs in place while the kids are matriculating through the school system. They're teaching them about economics. They're teaching them because understand those things, if they're learning those things as they're going along, that's what as the kids get older, is that's missing from the foundation, from a building block as you're going along through school. So if we want to have productive society, we got a short-term perspective and bring them all together. Where I really believe as a society, matriculate, really move and get things done. You see the needle move in a positive direction from that standpoint. That's my.
That's a good point. And that wasn't a question. That's a recommendation to go forward. Now, that's good, because that's where we want to be at right now.
With this new administration, they're trying to get rid of the education. They're trying to change the whole system.
No doubt.
So we need to think about that.
Yes. All right, last question.
So I guess this goes to my question. Around my age or younger, really don't know how our system, government, really taught the way it should be done in our public school systems. How do we, this is for the panel, how do we first being the new
What your cousin shared earlier, because I don't know if you know Karen Hunter, but popular radio show Urban View. If you don't know, 2 o'clock every day, weekday, if you have satellite, but she talks about this quite. These churches are structure, and we should be volunteering to come in these classes on history. That's infrastructure, social and educational infrastructure. We can leverage. It doesn't take a whole lot. We can just start there. I think that's probably. I don't know if you want to share anything. Is there anything?
That's what they do in Tulsa.
Tulsa, yeah.
You know, it didn't take any money. It took the educators to volunteer and to go into the churches and spaces that we own and start holding classes. Educators have to volunteer for this cause. My best is a teacher in the St. Louis Public Education, and she is tutoring descendants on her own starting next week for us. She get out of class. So we have to do things like that in our churches, everything, open their doors, and, you know, we just start the basics. Youngin', but
I was just say, it is always great when people can volunteer their time and their money and their resources. But I think also, you know, stipend to teachers to entice them to do this. As a teacher and who interacts with my daughter's teachers, it's not always easy. It dominates a lot of our time. And, you know, the amount we could probably provide teachers to do this could be nominal. But whatever it is, get this information to our kids. Their lives, their futures, it depends on ourselves. I think that if we can do just a little, that helps. We can't worry about what everybody else is not doing, because if we're waiting for everybody to collectively do the right thing or do the things that are necessary, nothing will get done and nobody will get the information that they need. You want to get yourself, your neighbor, your cousins, fine. If there are people who said, well, I've got something else to do, when you come back, you learn.
There are a lot of Banneker District became named with involvement of the community. Betty Williams, who had her school, became very well what she did with students. Bill Harrison had a decent program in his place. He says it's better to build men than men. And so he was very successful. There's a number of models out there. Select one, start one, but just do something. Each one of us. If it has to start, it could start with one of us. Don't wait for a leader. You are the leader you've been waiting for. Just remember that.
Very good. We want to take some time to thank our panelists and presenters for today on a Saturday morning. I also want to say here in the afternoon as well. We're gonna close out, but before we do, we got two items on the agenda we want to do. Manal was going to call the raffle for the Griot Museum, and then we're going to ask Pastor Perkins to come up and share a few words to close us out in closing remarks.
All right, y'all, we're going to move really quick so we are able to get out of here, because I know somebody got a pot roast on somewhere. And if you don't, you got to put it on, right? So we're going to call these numbers. And then we're also going to announce the winner for the auction, all right? No, just knock them both out. If you tickets, I'm also going to ask for you to write your name, your number, and email address down, so that way when you go to the griot, they know that you're coming, okay? You don't get turned away. We want to make sure you get in.
I have a good challenge. I close my eyes. I pick one of them, and then
You know, phenomenal, and you need to be on the committee. Okay, so We're going to call out these numbers. Please check your tickets. Room to those. All right, so the last numbers is 077. 077.
There you go.
Oh, well, all right. Well, all right now. Well, all right.
So what are these? A ticket? I think these tickets.
They were all in the basket.
Name and email. Right. The next digits 0 3 0 I do 063. Can you do those? Thank you. Take them here. All right. The next 3 2. I'm gonna keep her. Can you take? The next 3 numbers are 0 7 2.
You claimed it. Yep. Claimed it.
All right. The next numbers are 0 7 8. 0 7 8. We got the young lady in the back with the hat on. She's raising her hand. Can you take her, please? All right, the next 3 numbers are 0 9 5. 0 9 5. 0 9 5. Going once, going twice. All right. 0 8 2. All right, moving on. 3 0 6 1. 0 6 1. Wonderful. And these are tickets to the Grill Museum. As you all know, it's a historical black museum out here in St. Louis. We're doing everything, y'all. Support the local community. Not been there. Please go. Why are we giving you these tickets? Individuals who are take. All right, so the next 3 8 6. 0 8 6. Here we go. All right, so the next 3 numbers are 0 8 4. 0 8 4. All right. 0 8 4. We have a 0 8 4. Thank you. All right, the next 3 numbers are 7 7 3. Okay. The young lady with the swoop. With the swoop, because she today. Next 3 numbers 0 9 6. 0 9 0 6. All right. 1 0 100. 1 0 0. All right, y'all, one more. All right. Three numbers 07. Thank you. Zero. This one too. Mix them up, y'all. All right, so I think we mixed up the tickets. So the last tickets goes to the one who can do the best dance. She's okay. Here we go. So the last number is 069. 069. 093. All right. Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you. If you did receive tickets, please make sure that you see me. I want to make sure that I have your contact information so when you show up, you can get in. I'm going to tell you what's on the paper. I got you. All right. I'm going to announce the winners of the auction. So the winner for Stasia Curry's wonderful piece. Let me. For Stasia's piece, the winner of that one is David Henson. David Henson. Stasia, if you can come up. Yes. All right, if you take him next to the piece. We'll see. All right. And the winner of Tyler's piece is Dr. Miller Boyd.
As they come up and get their art pieces, I'm going to ask Brother Perkins now to come up and close us out with a closing remarks and his recommended call to action.
Let me say thank you. Dedication and commitment. It has been an honor to serve as chair of this event for now 7 years. Thank you all for embracing my vision. Centennial, thank you. And then I want to also thank all of our partners. I want to make sure I don't leave anyone out. Of course, Centennial Christian Church Christ, this place residents. It is that we will the men of Alpha and the Epsom Incredible Foundation. Thank you always up to support the community at large. We want to also acknowledge the Central West End Church. Many years ago, we were thinking about how do we deal with the divide. Our church adopted Washington Montessori School, and it brought together kind of a liberal congregation with a conservative congregation, and we wrestled together with how do we serve kids at Washington Montessori School, and it is there where I met Pastor Eric Stiller, and from that moment we wrestled theologically. I don't typically agree with what the Presbyterians were doing. Ones here in St. Louis, perhaps they were saying the same of Christ. And so we wrestled over at Montessori around care about. And I remember us just creating this dialogue around the divide, and he was the pastor outside of the black community to come to sit and talk about what's taking place in our area. In church, is willing with us most of the time things that we were talking to express public. Washington Montessori, our adopted school, and thank you Centennial Church for the ways in which we have provided some support to that school over the years. Kids can get their clothes washed and dried at the church because we were trying to increase enrollment there, and one of the factors, very small, for those of us who have access to those kind of resources, was began, in addition to providing services and support, was to make sure if a parent volunteer, you can wash your whole family clothes right there for free at Washington Montessori School. Thank you to Action Corporation, Health Center, PCAT, at the table supporting this work. And then I said this earlier about businesses in the area. We have a lot of folk making a lot of money off our people in our neighborhood, but one of the and the idea of station will come right behind us is that there will be an annual donation to community outreach. And I met with the owner to come up with the agreement, and they have upheld that since their inception. Now, it's more work to be done with the group, but Crown Food Mart always contributed to what we do in terms of our back and the Fountain Park, the MLK event, Park community, and when we're giving out baskets and food in the community. So thanks goes to our partners and also to our sponsors who are contributing financial resources that we might be able to work. Discussions to bus to Memphis, fully paid for children, continuing to explore ways in which we thank all of you, all of the presenters here. We could not pay these scholars for the work that they've done, but they did receive from Dr. Wright to the little Jalen, Brother Todd, who spoke, all of the artists all received honorariums for their time to us and our partners. I heard Brother Miller say, a little something people. That's our way of saying thank you for people sacrificing their time. So that's from the children all the way up to one of our leaders and giants that are here, Dr. Wright. Thank you so much for your gifts and your contributions to our activities today. One more thing I failed to mention. Event that's going to be public, share with you 4 ways. This is organizations that do amazing work with people. If I can just sum it up this way, live on the march. So with that event, it will take place next Saturday. Normally it's on MLK Day. We was hoping that not to have an event on MLK Day so we could celebrate the first election of an African-American female is what? Hear from God. In this interesting text, God says, you brought me a long way. I get to a place where I can hear from God, where it's time to celebrate. And encouraged by young people who are not leaders of tomorrow, but leaders of today. We have heard from people in the audience. We have heard all this wonderful thing. We even ate a meal together. We even gave out gifts. You saw artwork being done right before your eyes. The question is, what are you going to do when you get up from here? And where are you going next? The challenge to us all is that we've been at the mountain too long. I'm going to say something. I'm still a Christian. I still love God. Some of us been at the cross too long. At some point, you got to get up from the cross and go out into the world and be a witness, an example of hope for someone today. Get up from here and go on out, because you've been at this mountain way too long. And what I love about the text, he says, enough, get up and go out into the mountains. Y'all have a blessed and wonderful day. I hope that you will be empowered, that tomorrow that you will answer some of the questions that you raised here today. What can we do? You know what to do. Get up from this mountain today and go out into the hills. God bless you all.
Everyone, as you leave, I know it's 3:30, but I do want to share this, and it's kind of just taking a moment here. For those that don't know, if you're not a member of the church, again, we have been a part of this for 7 years now. And again, it's all because of a leader like Brother Perkins. So we want to acknowledge him, as well as Bridget and the family of Centennial. And I hope it's okay for me to say this, because I think I've been involved in Centennial for a while, since I've become president of the chapter back in 2014. But it's going to be okay. And for those that don't know, Pastor Perkins, after 17 years leading this church, will be moving on to another role, but he'll be staying here in St. Louis. But he's moving on to another role with the Disciples of Christ denomination, where he will be directing resources and all the things he spoke about in terms of revitalization, community, helping to grow churches throughout the ministry. He'll be serving as the director for the U.S., North America, U.S., and Canada. And so, again, he'll be staying here, but he'll be doing a lot of traveling, but he will no longer be heading this church. However, I do want to say to the Centennial Christian family that the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha see you, we know you, we are a part of you. And we will always be a member of this church in spirit and through presence. And if you ever call upon us, we will always be here to assist and support this church. That's our commitment to you and to the Fountain Park Lewis Place community as well. So again, Brother Perkins, just want to thank you for all you have done, your leadership. You know, we often, and I'm going to close, I'm not a preacher, but I'm going to close out by saying we often don't pray for our pastors. You know, we expect them to have all the answers and always to support us. But to be head of a church comes great responsibility. It's a heavy weight. And for 17 years, and being the youngest pastor to lead this church in its history, that's a whole lot. And to you, Mrs. Perkins, for all you've done, they say first ladies know it all, they do it all. We want to thank you and raise you up, because we know it couldn't be just him. You have to hear his complaints, his frustrations. So thank you for all you've done to be a great cheerleader to this man. And I know he loves you, and he's grateful for you. And to these wonderful sons that you have, thank you, gentlemen, for all you do for your mom and for your dad, and keep up the great work. And on behalf of this fraternity, and I can say that with our other previous president back there, we're committed to this community and to this church. God bless.
You all are free to go.